a couple of different books to talk about. First, we have the writer of Legion, Paul Levitz, the illustrator of Legion, Francis Portela, and also the illustrator of the new Legion Origin series, Chris Batista. Come on up, guys.
It's a Legion, what can we tell you?
Well, Paul, I guess the first question I would have is a fairly obvious one. It's not like you haven't been involved in, I won't use the R word, in the resetting of Legion before. So did you just follow a formula here, or did you try to find a new way to do it this time?
Well, one of the things that Eddie and Bob and Dan all asked for is why we're on this part of the panel. The Legion has a long history, but it started out as teen superheroes, and that was part of the magic of it. And one of the things we're trying to do, without disavowing all of the past of these characters, is put more of the emphasis on some of the newer, younger characters in the process. So you see a lot of some of the characters who joined the Legion from the Legion Academy. And you also see a little less of some of the guys who've been around since the very beginning, which is part of why Legion Secret Origin became an interesting opportunity as well.
Yeah, I think part of that too, that was another question I was going to ask, is when Legion starts, issue 1, you are dropped right into the middle of something that's ongoing, and it sort of begs that question of where it goes from there. So,
I think the best way to get somebody to taste a dish is to serve it piping hot. You really don't want to bring them in the kitchen and watch them watch every preparation and each ingredient poured in. You want to give them a good, hearty, if you like this taste, this is what's going on. And hopefully that's what we tried to do in the launch of the new book. And we made a deliberate decision to not include major portions of many of the cast members in the first few issues, so we go through this evolution. In fact, the cover that's up there, which represents neither of my two fine collaborators here, but the first special guest artist appearance, Walt Simonson, coming in to do issue number 5. Running late, but because he's off designing Spain in the 31st century, which was his assignment over lunch yesterday. But issue 5 will actually be the first of the issues that has every Legionnaire currently on duty having a minute in the sun, because I could torture Walt because he's only there for one issue. If I tortured Francis that way, he'd kill me because he has to deal with it again the next time. So I asked Walt to do a story that has essentially 21-page stories. As we meet all the gang.
Because we've got a few pages from issue number 2 that we're put up on the screen, so maybe you can tease out what's happening here.
This is some of Francis's fine world creation. We're off on a world on the edge of the United Planet space, and it's a world that is, quote-unquote, a watch world. Its job is to sit there and keep an eye on these really nasty and unpleasant aliens called the Dominators that Jim Shooter created many, many years ago, but have never really been explored or defined, and we're recreating. I think one of the terms I heard before was sort of the ramping up of the villains. That's absolutely one of the great powers. So the Dominators have recruited a Daxamite, a guy with the same powers as Superman, and he's got 5 modestly powered Legionnaires that he's got to deal with, and he feels quite competent to beat the crap out of all of them. And then beyond that, there's this whole corner of the universe inhabited by really some of the unpleasantest looking beings yet created. And here you see Francis depicting the renegade Daxamite beating the crap out of the Legionnaires. Chameleon Boy doing a nice kind of baseball glove catch there in some bizarre alien form. Nice thing is, I don't really have to figure out how these things work. I just say, Francis, could you have, like, he's an alien, he catches them. He sits there for 3 days cursing at me in Spanish. I can't understand a word of it, so I don't feel bad. I think he's saying, how nice, Paul, you give me an interesting challenge. And what he's really saying is, we'll cut his entrails into small pieces and put it in paella. Excellent. And we come out with something like this. How do you design an alien like that? Okay. I just draw. He's so nice that way.
I said while I am sleeping.
Okay.
My hand goes.
One more page here.
Okay, a little more action from that. We don't have art here for the Dominators themselves, but they are absolutely monstrous, and they will be around for a while as an interesting part of the Legion's universe.
Okay, so next to talk about is a miniseries that's coming out now called Legion Secret Origin. There's the cover of issue 1 up there. Paul, maybe you can thread through how this ties in.
So the guys came down the hall and said, "You want to do some more Legion?" I said, "I never told enough stories about the Legion. I've got lots to work with." And they said, "Can you do the origin?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been there, done that a bunch of times." The guys have read it. If we're going to do a book called Legion Secret Origin, what we really ought to be doing is a book that emphasizes secret. And got to work with Chris Batista for the first time, who's been a Legion artist in a previous lifetime and a devoted fan of the material. So Chris and I and Chris Conroy went out, who was editing the book from the first minute or two of it, went out to lunch and began to plot. And I'd take a little bit of it from there, Chris.
We kind of thought what would be the most relevant thing would be, there is something to be gained from starting over from the very beginning, because Legion has such a long continuity, so there was going to be the current book, and in a way this is almost like the real zero issue right here, and we decided that there had to be a reason for a Legion, you know, like there's a deeper meaning. Yeah, they all came together, we all want to save the galaxy and all that stuff, but there's an underlying reason for how the Legion was allowed to grow and create, become this giant intergalactic force. And that's kind of the real basis of the series here.
One of the fundamental questions you have, I think, for all of the books that you're talking about at this panel is the classical Robin question. You know, isn't it child abuse to take a 14-year-old and have him try to save the universe? Yes. And in the Legion's time, the answer to that is a little bit different, because it's a more complicated universe in many ways, and our view of age and everything else will evolve by that time. The aging process will probably change. But part of what we really needed to address as a secret is why these individuals matter, why the Legion was allowed as a
What is Liefeld drawing over
basically
there?
a plaything put together by a billionaire to take over. And we live in New York City. We've lived happily under Mike Bloomberg's reign for these past 6 or 7 years. We understand billionaires have slightly different rules than the rest of the planet.
To the actual question, just go up to him and say,
Did Archie
what's the
Franklin
meaning
write
of
this?
life?
And so
What do
you
you think
get
Rob Liefeld is
the
drawing
classic
over
moment
there?
of the attempted assassination of Brand and how the Legionnaires come together. But I think, is that the only page we've got actually of the Brand incident in the whole first issue? Or is it
the
2
page
pages?
that leads up to it, but that's essentially the money shot.
So the classic origin of the Legion is only 2 pages out of the first 20, and everything else is stuff you've never seen before, didn't know about before. You find out a little bit about how the United Planets had been a mess before the time of the Legion was just coming together. You find some interesting people who have something to do with it. The couple of heads you see on the bottom are 2 members of the United Planet Security Directorate, who are kind of their version of the creepy NSA/CIA types who are behind the scenes doing a bunch of stuff. And galactic madness ensues, and over 6 issues we find out a lot of strange things we didn't know before.
And I got to redesign all those, I wouldn't say corny costumes, but some of them really needed to be added to the present day. So that was a lot of fun, but I think that I didn't keep them too far removed from what made them awesome in the first place.
Actually, if I can interject, what's cool about, the guys working on all the new 52 is how excited they are, how energized they are, because I was on a flight with, over here, and Chris didn't wait to show me the sketches. He's like, I'm working on this thing, check them out. Mind you, we hadn't been able to take our flight, so it had been a day. He hadn't washed himself. He was a mess, and yet he's dying to show me these sketches, and that's the kind of cool thing, about all this.
It was fun when I realized that I was waiting for them to say, no, but they're like, did you start drawing the book yet? It's like, okay, yeah. So that was kind of fun.
And it really allows us, you can see Chris's personality that he puts into the characters in Brainiac 5, who's really young here, and Phantom Girl. There's this wonderful moment in the first issue where the United Planets is in the middle of this disastrous situation and they need help, and their fleet's scientific officer blows up a quarter of his starship in trying to figure out the puzzle. So they have to send for the smartest person in the universe. So they go to Kolu, which is the recently joined to the United Planets world that the Brainiac came from in our time. And they're told, we're going to give you our mightiest intellect. This little stripling 14-year-old boy standing there in the middle of it, smarter than the rest of them. And they send him off to figure out how the universe works. And while he's sitting there trying to decode the problem, this strange kind of ghostly lady shows up, and he can't figure her out for shit. And she's just having a really good time and poking herself right through his invulnerable, impossible force shield and surviving things you shouldn't be able to survive. And you learn for the first time why, out of all the people on her home world, Phantom Girl's the only one who's ever made it into our universe. And a little bit more about who she is, a little bit more about who Brainiac is, and you can see from all of this sort of the human interaction of the characters on a different kind of level. And here's a little more of the security directorate reacting to it. You can see all three of the members there. You can see the other page, and all of our core Legionnaires. So hopefully you'll enjoy some of the secrets and find out some cool new stuff.
All right, thank you, Paul. Of course, 2 books long is never enough Legion. We actually have a third Legion book going on right now, Legion Lost, for whom we don't have creators here today, so Mr. Berganza is going to walk you through what we're looking at on the screen here and talk about the book a little bit.
Yeah, this is the book that's done by Fabian Niensche with